Imagine this. You stand alone on the peak of a mountain, the wind howling against your skin like a whisper from the abyss. Below you, the world stretches endlessly. Cities pulsing with restless ambition, people scurrying like ants, chasing after illusions they mistake for meaning. You have climbed higher than most, defied the odds, endured the brutal ascent of life. Yet standing here above it all, a terrifying question grips you. Was it worth it? You were promised that discipline, ambition, and resilience would bring fulfillment. That by embracing struggle, you would carve out your place in the world. And yet, the higher you climb, the lonelier it feels. The sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the cold calculation of survival. What has it all led to? Is success a reward or just another prison? This is the paradox of Capricorn. Born under Saturn's rule, you carry the weight of expectation like an iron burden. You are the strategist, the builder, the one who sees beyond the moment. But in this relentless pursuit of progress, you often forget to ask, progress toward what? Nietzsche understood this dilemma better than most. He too was obsessed with ascent, an ascent of the soul, a transcendence beyond the limitations of the herd. But he warned of a dangerous trap, the risk of becoming a slave to one's own ambition, of mistaking discipline for meaning, of climbing without questioning where the mountain leads. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how, he wrote. But what if your why is nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion? Now pause, breathe, look around. The modern world celebrates ambition, but rarely questions its cost. Social media drowns us in images of relentless hustle. Motivational speeches glorify the grind. Society admires those who sacrifice their comfort for achievement. And yet, how many of these so-called successful people are truly free? Capricorn, the master of perseverance, is also the one most at risk of falling into Nietzsche's ultimate warning, becoming the very thing they once despised. Think about it. You once worked hard to escape mediocrity, to rise above the complacency of others. But in doing so, have you merely forged a different kind of chain? Have you become a prisoner of discipline, shackled by your own expectations? Nietzsche spoke of the Übermensch, the one who transcends the constraints of conventional morality, who forges their own path, who creates values rather than following them. But there is a dangerous halfway point, a place where many Capricorns find themselves trapped, a place where discipline replaces desire, where ambition erodes joy, where success feels strangely empty. And so you must ask yourself, are you climbing towards something, or just running from failure? Is your discipline an act of power, or an unconscious survival mechanism? When was the last time you felt truly free? These are the questions Capricorn must confront, the questions Nietzsche himself wrestled with. The questions that determine whether you will rise as a master of your fate or become a cautionary tale of unexamined ambition. The answer lies not in more success, more discipline, more control. It lies in something deeper, something hidden beneath the surface of all your striving. And so we must go further. Because if you are not careful, the very thing that makes you strong might also be the thing that destroys you. You were taught to believe that suffering is necessary, that hardship is the price of greatness, that discipline, sacrifice, and unwavering control are the virtues that separate the weak from the strong. And you embraced it. Capricorn doesn't complain. Capricorn doesn't break. Capricorn doesn't stop until the goal is reached. But whose goal? Here lies the hidden problem. the invisible force that shapes you without your consent. Friedrich Nietzsche, the man who dismantled the illusions of morality, saw through this conditioning. He warned against what he called slave morality, a system of values imposed upon people to keep them obedient, to make them suffer willingly, to convince them that their struggles are noble rather than engineered. Now look at yourself. Who taught you that suffering is necessary? Was it your parents, who admired resilience but never allowed weakness? Was it society, which glorifies relentless work but never rewards stillness? Was it your own fear, whispering that if you stop moving, you will become nothing? Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, the planet of limitation, duty, and time, feels this conditioning more than any other sign. From birth, you are taught that worth is earned through struggle, that if you just endure long enough, your suffering will be redeemed. But Nietzsche shattered this illusion. He called it what it was, a trap. Man does not strive for happiness, he wrote. Only the Englishman does. Happiness is not the goal of life. It was never meant to be. Power is, freedom is, becoming is. Yet here is the cruel irony. Those who seek power without questioning their chains remain slaves to them. Think about it. Your relentless work ethic, your ability to endure, who does it serve? Yourself or the system that demands you work harder, longer, without question? Nietzsche spoke of the last man, the comfortable, obedient creature who avoids discomfort, who fears risk, who lives a small and mediocre life. But he also warned of another danger, the one that applies to you, the danger of becoming a camel. The camel stage. Nietzsche described 3 transformations of the human spirit. The first is the camel, the beast of burden, the one who carries the heaviest load, who accepts hardship, who says yes to duty, responsibility, and sacrifice. The camel believes suffering makes it strong. It kneels willingly, accepting its burdens, believing that by carrying them, it proves its worth. This is where most Capricorns live. This is the hidden trap. Because the camel is not free, it does not question why it carries the weight. It only knows that it must. And so the Capricorn mind convinces itself, I must work harder, I must endure, I must not complain. But must you? Who decided that your value lies in what you endure rather than what you create? Nietzsche's answer was clear. If you want to be free, you cannot stay a camel forever. You must rebel. You must transform. You must let go of the burdens that were never yours to carry. But here's the terrifying part. The moment you do, the world will turn against you. Because society loves the camel. Employers love the camel. Families love the camel. The one who never questions, never rebels, never refuses. And so, the moment you ask, what if I put the weight down? You become a threat. This is why so many Capricorns stay trapped. Not because they cannot be free, but because freedom is terrifying. So now the real question emerges. Are you ready to shed your burdens? Because if you are, the next step is inevitable. You must kill the camel. You must become something else, something stronger, something terrifying, the lion. Imagine this. One day, you wake up and realize something unsettling. For years, you believed that your struggle was leading somewhere, that your discipline, your resilience, your sacrifice would eventually bring you freedom. But now, as you stand at the peak of all you have built, an uncomfortable truth begins to sink in. You have spent your whole life proving your worth, and yet, you still feel unworthy. You have achieved what others admire, and yet, admiration feels hollow. You have sacrificed everything for success. And yet, success has not set you free. This is the Capricorn paradox, and this is exactly what Nietzsche warned about. Because the longer you carry burdens without questioning them, the harder they are to put down. At some point, discipline stops being a tool and becomes a cage. At some point, ambition turns from fuel into chains. And the worst part? You don't even realize it's happening. The silent prison of the camel. Nietzsche's camel is a creature of endurance. It takes on the heaviest loads, believing that its suffering makes it noble. But the camel does not see the bars of its own prison, because the bars were never physical. They were psychological. Here's how the trap works. The more you achieve, the more you need to prove. You tell yourself that once you reach a certain milestone, you'll finally feel satisfied. But that moment never comes. You push harder, take on more responsibility, aim for greater heights. The world rewards you for this. Society praises your ambition. But deep down, you know the truth. No achievement ever fills the void. Work becomes identity. You are no longer a person who works hard. You are hard work itself. Without it, who are you? If you stop striving, do you even exist? The thought of slowing down terrifies you, because for so long, your worth has been measured by your struggle. Without the struggle, you fear you will be nothing. Success feels hollow. You have seen it before. The executive who reaches the top and feels empty. The disciplined leader who built an empire but lost their soul in the process. The Capricorn who conquered their world, only to realize they never built a home within it. Why does this happen? Because success without self-examination is just another form of servitude. Nietzsche saw this pattern playing out across history. He called it the tragedy of those who obey without question. Society conditions people to believe that discipline and suffering will lead to freedom, but in reality, it only breeds another kind of enslavement, one where people no longer recognize their chains. The hidden enemy, Saturn's curse. Capricorn's ruler, Saturn, is known as the planet of discipline, structure, and limitation. In astrology, Saturn represents the father, the authority figure, the force that imposes rules and demands obedience. But here's the secret. Saturn does not rule with force alone. It rules with guilt. Think about it. Why do you feel guilty when you rest? Why does slowing down feel like failure? Why does ambition, even when it exhausts you, feel like the only way forward? Because Saturn has convinced you that to stop striving is to betray yourself. This is the consequence of living as the camel. You become unable to let go of struggle, even when it no longer serves you. And yet, something deep inside you is starting to resist. A voice, quiet but growing louder. A hunger not for more success, but for something else entirely. Not control, not discipline, not struggle, but freedom. This is the moment Nietzsche spoke of. The moment where you begin to see the bars of your own cage. The moment where you realize that the system you have obeyed, whether it is society, family, or even your own inner critic, was never designed to set you free. And if you want to escape, if you truly want to become something more, there is only one option left. You must rebel. You must become the lion. But are you ready? Because the next step is irreversible. You have spent your whole life climbing, one step at a time, one goal after another, one sacrifice upon the next. And now, as you stand at the summit, looking down at everything you've built, an empire of discipline, a fortress of resilience, a terrifying realization strikes you. You were never climbing toward freedom. you are climbing toward a prison in the sky. Because no matter how high you go, the chains remain. The struggle never ends. And if you are not careful, your greatest strength, your ability to endure, to push through, to outwork everyone, becomes your greatest curse. But what if you refused? What if, for the first time in your life, you put the weight down? The second transformation, becoming the lion. Nietzsche tells us that after the camel collapses under the weight of its burdens, a new force emerges, the lion. The lion is defiant. It no longer kneels, no longer obeys, no longer accepts the values imposed upon it. The lion roars. But what does it roar against? The greatest enemy of all, thou shalt. Thou shalt work harder. Thou shalt suffer to prove your worth. Thou shalt sacrifice your happiness for the sake of achievement. These rules have been carved into your mind for so long that you never thought to question them. Until now, the lion breaks them. It rejects the idea that suffering is noble. It rejects the idea that discipline must come before joy. It rejects the idea that self-worth is something to be earned rather than something you already possess. The lion refuses to be ruled, and this is where the true rebellion begins. Step 1. Question every value you have been given. Nietzsche's philosophy revolves around one radical idea. Most of what we believe isn't ours. It was given to us by society, by religion, by culture, by authority figures who benefited from our obedience. But what if these values no longer serve you? Ask yourself, who benefits from my endless hard work? Is it truly me, or is it a system that rewards productivity but never fulfillment? Why do I feel guilty when I rest? Who taught me that stopping is the same as failing? Why do I measure my worth by achievement? What if I am already enough? Capricorn, more than any other sign, struggles with these questions. Because Capricorn was raised to believe that to question authority is to invite chaos. But what if chaos is exactly what you need? Because true transformation does not come from obedience. It comes from destruction. Step 2. Destroy the old you. Nietzsche believed that to become truly free, one must first undergo destruction. Not physical destruction, but the destruction of false beliefs, the tearing down of self-imposed limitations. Capricorn, for all its strength, often builds its own prison. You create rules for yourself, chains disguised as standards. I must always be productive. I must always be in control. I must never show weakness. But these rules are illusions. They are the remnants of the camel mindset, the echoes of a system that wants you to be useful, not free. The lion destroys these rules. And yes, destruction is terrifying, because without these rules, what remains? This is where most people turn back. They cannot handle the void. But Nietzsche says this is the only way forward, because only after destruction can true creation begin. Step 3. Create new values, your own values. Once you have burned the false beliefs to the ground, you stand in the wreckage, free but uncertain. What now? Now you choose. Nietzsche's ultimate challenge is this. If you could rebuild your life from nothing, what would you create? Not based on duty, not based on expectation, not based on what you were taught, but based on who you truly are. This is where Capricorn's true power is revealed. Because once you are free from the need to prove yourself, your discipline, your ambition, your ability to build, all of it becomes limitless. Not driven by fear, not driven by guilt, not driven by the need to earn your worth, but by the purest force of all, your own will. The final step, embrace the unknown. Most people never reach this stage. They stay camels forever, obediently carrying burdens that are not theirs. But you are different. You are standing on the edge of something terrifying, the unknown. Because for the first time, you are not following a path. You are creating it. And that is what Nietzsche calls the highest transformation of all, the child. But are you ready for it? Because once you step forward, there is no turning back. You have torn down the old world. The rules that once governed you, destroyed. The burdens you carried, cast aside. The system that once dictated your worth, shattered. And now you stand at the threshold of something terrifying, absolute freedom. But here's the truth no one tells you. Freedom is not comfort. Freedom is not safety. Freedom is not peace. Freedom is the abyss. And in that abyss, you must do the one thing that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You must create yourself. The final transformation, becoming the child. Nietzsche's philosophy does not stop at the lion. To destroy is not enough. Because destruction, if left unchecked, leads only to nihilism, a void with no meaning. And Nietzsche hated nihilism. He saw it as the greatest danger of all. Because when you reject all values, all traditions, all beliefs, what is left? Nothing. And that nothingness can consume you. It can make you bitter, empty, and lost. This is why most people never truly break free. They step outside the system, but instead of creating, they fall into despair. They say, if nothing is true, then why bother? But Nietzsche's answer is radical. Instead of being crushed by the void, you must fill it. And this is where the final transformation begins. You must become the child. What does it mean to be the child? Unlike the camel, the child does not carry the weight of the past. Unlike the lion, the child does not waste energy fighting old systems. The child is something entirely new. The child creates. The child is playful. The child is free. The child does not ask for permission to exist. It simply is. And this is where the Capricorn mind must undergo its greatest challenge yet. Because Capricorn has spent a lifetime proving itself. A lifetime of discipline, a lifetime of control, a lifetime of carrying weight. And now, you are being asked to let go, to play, to create for no reason other than the sheer joy of it, to pursue what excites you, even if it has no measurable value, to embrace life not as a struggle, but as an expression of your will. This is the final, most powerful realization. You were never meant to be a machine. You were never meant to live only for duty. You were never meant to sacrifice joy for achievement. You were meant to create. What will you create? Now the real question begins. If you could erase every expectation placed upon you, every rule you've ever followed, who would you be? Not who you were told to be, not who you were expected to be, not who you were conditioned to be, but who you choose to be. This is the essence of the Nietzschean Capricorn, a being that no longer climbs because it has to, but because it wants to. A being that no longer works because of fear, but because of passion. A being that no longer seeks approval because it has become its own authority. This is self-mastery, not control over others, not dominance over society, not the relentless pursuit of status, but the ability to define your own life on your own terms. The eternal return. Would you live this life again? There is one final test. Nietzsche called it the eternal return. Imagine for a moment that you are forced to relive this exact life forever. Every choice, every regret, every sacrifice, repeating in an endless cycle. Would you look upon your life and say, yes, I would live this again exactly as it is? Or would you feel trapped? Because this is the real test of self-creation. If you are living a life you would not choose to repeat forever, then you are not truly free. You are still trapped in expectations. You are still following rules that are not yours. You are still carrying a weight that does not belong to you. But if you can look at your life and say, yes, I would choose this again, then you have become something extraordinary. Not a follower, not a machine, not a slave to the system, but a creator. A being that writes its own fate, a being that masters itself, a being that becomes its own highest ideal. This is the true Capricorn, not the one bound by duty, not the one crushed by ambition, not the one lost in endless work, but the one that has transcended, the one that chooses, the one that creates, the one that lives fully, freely, without regret. And that, Nietzsche would say, is the ultimate power of the Capricorn mind.